Welcome, everybody, to a TNS short episode where we discuss a single topic in a quick manner. We will be doing this type of stuff when there's not a lot of things to discuss that happened in the last week, and a full episode's just not really going to be worth it. And yeah, as I said, a single topic. And today's topic is going to be that Valance Squad are apparently looking for a new support. Tell us about it, Sabo.
Yeah, BigManTingz posted on his Twitter account last night or yesterday afternoon sometime, I'm not quite sure. But he basically said that the team has decided to start holding tryouts for new support and that they're still willing to bring him back if they can't find another support.
Yeah, and that he's willing to come back as well if he doesn't get a better offer and if they would offer it to him.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, was he right? Was he the right choice of a replacement? Was BigManTingz the right choice? Would replacing him be what helps Valance Squad get to the next level, which is making these LAN events on a regular basis?
I mean, just in general, right? Making roster changes at this point in time makes a lot of sense. You've got a lot of practice to do before you actually head into the next season. So if something's not working within scrims, you should be able to figure it out pretty quickly. So I think this is a great time to sort of experiment, and I can see the reasoning behind why you would kick BigManTingz, right? He's not in any way, shape, or form a stellar support, I'd say. I think there should be better options out there than him, or there are at least enough alternatives out there that you could pick up.
I've actually been a fan of BigManTingz. I'm not sure if kicking BigManTingz was the right choice for this Valance Squadron team, especially since he's been one of the members that has been somewhat consistent throughout the entire year. Lobster and Funballer have been up and down all year, all season long. And if you're asking me why they didn't make it to Worlds, it wasn't because of BigManTingz. It was because of some of the other players on the team. And so I'm not in agreement with kicking BigManTingz. I think he can play support well enough where if one of the other 5 supports in the league retires or gets kicked or whatever it is, that he is a legitimately good choice to pick up for, say, if Emilzy decides to retire and Obey is looking for another support, BigManTingz should be right there on top of the list. That's just a scenario that I'm not saying Emilzy is retiring.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that he is the first guy that should have been removed, right? I think if you want to level criticism at any single member of this Valance Squad team, it feels like it's got to be Lobster. And that's not just because he's the only guy on the team who's not British. But he has just... What?
I agree. I mean, it's got to be Lobster is the first person you look at because he is the captain of this team. He is was supposed to be a standout mid laner and has been for a long time. But I don't want to say he lost the step this season, but that something definitely changed there. He wasn't as impactful as we're used to seeing from him.
Yeah, we've talked about it before already, right? That it looks like he used to be a very consistent mid laner that would always put up a good performance, that would always have a fairly big impact in the game. And now it seems like and sometimes he would have these big performances where he just pops off and just completely dominates a game, right? Like maybe every 25 games that he plays. Now this season it seems like his overall level has been lower, and it seems like those pop-off performances that we've seen from him in the past have been missing. And I think if he wants to compete with other mids, or with the top tier mids in EU, then he kind of needs those. And especially right now, I don't know if the meta is even favoring him, right? But then again, making decisions based on the meta going into an entirely new season might not be the best idea anyway.
Look, I understand he's captain and all, but this move feels like just a knee jerk reaction to not wanting to step away or take a look at yourself, and that
Yeah.
I was like, for a captain, in my eyes, a captain should look to make the team better, but he should also look at himself first and how his game is playing. And if if you're asking me, the Lobster didn't do that, because if he had done that, I think this would have been a different choice. And I think Lobster would have maybe said, told the team he might be moving to coach, or doing something to improve himself other than just, hey, our support. What's the player that has the least impact on the team, or the role that has the least impact on the team? And it's the support. So let's just find another support.
Yeah. See, I think what it comes down to, whether Lobster would have been the better choice to be removed or not, it really depends on the type of impact he still has as a shot caller, right? If the entirety of Valance agrees that he is, well, as a shot caller, vital to the team and to the team's success, then it makes sense to keep him. Otherwise, I think he is the weakest link on the team, and he should have been removed. And I don't know how the power structure is within Valance either, right? Obviously, officially, the entire power is gonna be on Lobster, because he is the captain and he is sort of the access point of the team to Hi-Rez themselves, right? Because they're not a sponsored team right now. They don't have an org that holds the spot. The spot is Lobster's. And but I don't know if he actually has the single and the final say in any decision the team makes, right? And if that's the case, then yeah, it's probably he could be at fault as well for not removing himself from the team and stepping down into a coaching role or into a different role. If it's not the case, if the others also have a large amount of input into the decision the team makes, then obviously they are at least partially at fault as well if this move doesn't end up working out in their favor overall. And I think it's important that we sort of acknowledge the difference that makes, if you understand what I'm saying.
I mean, I understand that it may not solely be Lobster's decision, but he's the one that's going to get, catch all the backlash for this, because he is the captain. He is listed as the captain on the Spite Esports and on Hi-Rez. He's the direct link. And though you're right, they don't have an organization right now, it still, if you're looking at the balance of power inside Valance, it's got to be at least 50% for Lobster, because he's the captain. He's other than Funballer, he's the most tenured player on his team. And he might have more. He does have more experience in the pro league than Funballer, but coming into this season, in season 4, this was the what remained of the orbit, or of Paradigm. I guess most people will remember them as Paradigm, and it was Lobster, Funballer, and Zelia, adding BigManTingz and Cheerio at the beginning of the season.
They had a lot more success as Paradigm than they ever did as Orbit. When you think about it.
They played what, 7 games under the Orbit banner.
Yeah,
it wasn't a lot. So,
and they got wrecked completely at Super Regionals. I think they might have won one of those games.
Looking at the roster as a whole, how they started out the season with the roster that they had. The two members that they removed in Cherio and Zelia are both going to World, so maybe this is a good thing for BigManTingz. I don't know. Just point that out. I mean, you get removed from Valance, you're almost guaranteed to go to Worlds.
Yeah. See if maybe Rapper steps down as energy support, and then they pick up BigManTingz and win Worlds in season 5 of him.
Well, let's look at BigManTingz history. He was brought into the league in season 3 to replace what was his name? It was the Fnatic support. Badger, was that his name?
Yeah, Badger.
So he was on what at the time was considered, coming into season 3, the third best team in Europe.
Yeah.
Behind Energy and Paradigm, or behind I guess it was Pantera at the time. So Pantera and Paradigm,
Yeah.
and didn't start off, the split didn't start off the way they wanted to. He what was the hunter's name on Fnatic? I know his name. He was one of the best hunters in the league. Rails, yeah, Rails decides to step away middle of the split, takes a vacation, does whatever, never comes back. The team falls apart. BigManTingz, they lose their spot in relegation. BigManTingz then goes to the Dignitas squad, the old Dignitas squad, with Shadow Nightmare and Frostiak, and I believe it was Ducky.
Yeah,
they barely miss out on Worlds. They win the Gauntlet. They go to the wild card round. They barely miss out on Worlds, and then the team falls apart. BigManTingz gets picked up by Valance Squadron, and that's how it. But my point is that he really hasn't been the issue on any of the teams that he's played on. Like, he's been a really consistent support in my eyes in Europe. And if you're asking me, I think he is probably the polar bear Mike of Europe. He's a good player. He's just looking for the right situation, and I don't know if he's found that right situation yet.
Well, apparently he hasn't. I mean, there's a reason they're kicking him still, right? And if it's not purely performance based, it's probably something with the synergy as well. And yeah, I don't think you can identify him as the single reason why a team sort of dropped off or fell off. But I think it's very rare that in general you can point to a single reason when a team's not working right. Right? I think even if you look at Fnatic, it's not like Real's leaving just completely destroyed this team. It was more that the team was already in shambles before he left. And you can look at Dignitas.
The Reals was the cherry on top. Reals leaving was the cherry on top for that Fnatic team.
Yeah, and I think Dignitas, they always had potential, but they never had like the sort of tools set up that would allow them to get to a world championship over the NA teams at the time, right? And yeah, I think with none of the teams that he's been on, really, you can point to him as being the issue, but I don't think you can point to anyone else either. And within this Valance roster, assuming that Lobster still has a very large impact in terms of calling, it would be the same situation, right? It would just be the puzzle that's failing, not necessarily the parts of the puzzle. Or you can have if you have, I need a good analogy for this. If you have all working car parts, but you have 2 clutches and 2 engines and no transmission and no wheels, right? You have working parts, but they're not working as a team, or they're not working as a car.
They're not working the way they're supposed to be working.
Yeah, the issue is working together, not necessarily an issue with the single pieces, right?
Yeah, I get that analogy.
And yeah, so see, that's what I think is with Tingz. I think he has proven himself to be a good support. But if Valance are looking for a different choice, then I think it makes sense, and I think it makes sense considering who they have available, because there's a lot of sort of free agent supports or supports that would be interested in joining a team like Valance that I can see out there.
Yeah, a lot of them that come to mind though have had issues in the past. Badger was removed from the Fnatic team at the start of season 3. Rumors were that he had a bad attitude and just wasn't working with the team well, and so they decided to remove him.
Yeah.
Frosty, I think, fits pretty much that same mold where attitude has been a big, well, not Frosty, Frezzy.
Yeah. Well, Frezzy, it's also just, he has a bit of a weird play style, right?
Who else is there? Lance Wolf, who had a very impressive, was it series of relegations? I think he played in 2 of them. Or was it just the one?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it might have been 2, might have just been 1. Honestly, don't know.
Well, regardless, he looked really good in both of those. In whatever amount of relegations he's played, he looked really good alongside his Hunter Spudio, which might beg the question: do they stick together, or do you not get one without the other? And if that's the case, what happens to Funballer if you do decide to bring in Lance Wolf and Spudio, or can you pry the 2 apart and just have Lance Wolf? Anybody else you can think of?
Yeah, well, obviously there's Murder as well, right? Or Kanye Life, as he was known in season 1. He really has dropped off quite a bit, considering he's gone from being being part of the team that got second place at the first World Championship, and now he's all the way down in the Challenger circuit, or I don't even know if he's still active, to be honest. And he would be an option still, right? I think if he finds form again, and with the amount of time that they have to really try him out, he could find form again, and he could fit in this team potentially. And if that's the case, then it could be a good deal for the Valance squad roster. And yeah, other options that come to mind are obviously the supports from the bottom 2 SPL teams that are dropping out of the league now, which I think are... Wait, who's on? Caspanify and... Why can't I remember their names?
He was a really good support too.
Yeah. Wait a second. I'm gonna find it. I need to look it up. I remember that name. I should remember that name at least. Come on. What was his name? Okay. I'll have it in a couple of seconds. Don't worry. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. Oh, Draco Marino from the Poppies.
Yeah, Draco Marino, that's his name.
Yeah, if he wants to leave the Spanish-based team, right, that would be an option as well, I think.
But that also brings up the language barrier in both of those situations, because Spanify is Russian. I believe that whole Burrito squad was Russian. And
well,
then,
they were Eastern European. Right, not entirely Russian, but I think mostly from those former Soviet countries. At least from what I know. Okay, I can list them for you, actually. So Kaspanify and Fusify are both Russian. Farakrik is Ukrainian. Johnny is Serbian. And Sibi is Croatian. So we've got a combination of people from the Balkans and people from former Soviet territories.
Their primary language should be Russian because of the Soviet.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. again, the language barrier comes into play with both Draco Marino, who's Spanish, and Caspanify, who is Russian. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said this Valance squad team was mostly British.
Yeah, outside of Lobster, they're all British. But yeah, it depends on how comms work out, right? If you can get if Draco Marino or Fusify, look, speak proper English, right, or speak English well enough, then they could work in this team, I think. And skill-wise or synergy-wise, they might be an upgrade over BigManTingz, especially Draco Marino, I think, has that possibility there. But yeah, language barrier could be an issue.
Well, that pretty much lists the options for replacement for Valance.
Yeah, don't think
Now,
there's many others that we know of, at least.
I think we've covered pretty much what BigManTingz can do. He'd have to either accept coming back to Valance Squad as either a support or in a different role, choose to be a coach for a different team, or drop down into the challenger circuit and play for a team there. Which I think, if that ends up being the case, I think if you land BigManTingz as your support, I mean you've got a, depending on who else is on the team, but you got a pretty good start of in terms of building a team that can compete for the top of the Challenger Cup.
Yeah,
BigManTingz
certainly.
is a good start. So.
Yeah, where I see him having issues finding a team is as far as the SPL is concerned, right? The rest of the SPL teams.
Yeah, because the other five are pretty much established. You'd have, like I said, they'd have to either retire or get kicked. And
Yeah.
Raffer, Emilzy, Trix Tank, of course, Callus and Dardaz are all pretty much. They're not going anywhere unless they retire. So
Yeah. The only real option there would be if the big roster just completely falls apart and they rebuild something from what remains from it, right?
yeah, there's a. I mean, there's something I thought of a second ago, but when you brought it up, yeah, I wasn't going to talk about it until you brought it up. What if this current Dignitas roster falls apart and Trix Tank ends up going back to Funballer and Lobster, and well,
Oh yeah.
who's going to replace Trix Tank? Well, BigManTingz has got to be somebody you look at.
See the question I have there, do you not think that due to their history, Trix and QO are a combo that you can only get together? Because if that's the case, do you really see this Valence roster also kicking fails?
Well, it's not. It's not like it's like a done. That they have. It's a done. It's a foregone conclusion that Cuvo and Trix have to play together. I mean, we've seen some teammates we thought would always be together kind of go their separate ways.
Yeah, going back to that Fnatic roster that had
Yeah,
stayed the same for I think 2 or more seasons and then decided to split up.
yeah, and you think of even in smaller terms where it's just one or two or three players. You got to think of Weekend and Cyclone's been split up for a while, went their separate ways, played on separate teams. Uh, Frostiak and Shadow Nightmare played together for years and years, and they finally ended up breaking apart and going in separate ways. Shadow Nightmare's later retired, but like we've seen it in the past where teammates we thought would always be on the same team end up splitting. And another one that comes to mind was at the beginning of season 3, Jeff Henley was not going to be the support for LG. It was going to be Snoopy
Yeah.
until Baskin left. And so if that hadn't happened, then Jeff and Barrow wouldn't be a thing anymore.
Yeah. See, I think even all that considered, I think there's still a special difference to those and to Cubo and Trix, right? Because I'm pretty sure those guys literally went to school together, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, see, that's kind of like if Deathwalker decides to leave Rival. We're all close friends. Some of them went to school together and all that. But Deathwalker is considered to be the best player on the team. So if he leaves, and this again, this is a scenario. This is just something that this is not idea that I'm pitching to you. Deathwalker leaves. I mean, what happens to the rest of that rival team?
Yeah. They'd be in
And
trouble as well.
so Trix Tank and Cubo. If Trix Tank decides to leave and Cubo decides to stay, I mean, Dignitas is not in huge trouble. They still got 4 all-star players, and according to Hindu Man, are the 4 best players in the roles in the entire league. That's another thing. Hindu Man put out his power rankings this week, and pretty much Dignitas, all 5 members of Dignitas were considered to be the top player in their spot.
Hmm. That's a bit interesting as well.
So yeah, losing if again a scenario if Trix Tanks leaves Dignitas and goes back to Valance, which probably not going to happen, but it's just something we're throwing out there. But it's not like Dignitas is going to completely collapse. They still got 4 really good players.
Yeah, and that is different from a lot of the other teams we have, really, where they seem a bit more centered around a single player, right? I think Rival's a good example of that as well, and not necessarily just that they're more focused around a single player, but that they're based on just purely team synergy. That is hard to build if you make any sort of roster change, right? I think Dig, just due to the individual talent that they have, would be able to stay a good team even if they lost a member. So yeah, I could see it happening, especially now that Super Regionals has gone so badly. And I think that is the one thing that could give QO and Trix a reason to split up, right? Because both of their teams, when they've been together now, haven't made it through Super Regionals due to kind of their own issues that they've had. And yeah, if they decide that they're somehow cursed, then I could see them deciding to split up.
Personally, I hope they don't split up because they're a lot like Jeff Henley and Barracuda. They're just teammates you always expect to be together, but
Yeah.
business is business. If in traditional sports, if somebody's not working out, you know, and you're losing and you're costing the team extra money, you make a change. And it's the same case here where if if they decide Trix Tank was the clutch, that the thing that brought them down at Super Regionals, which was he was not. It was more Cubo, Fred, and Variety at Super Regionals. But if they
Yeah.
decide that he is the weakest link, and he's costing them money, then that it could happen because this is all about money. The love of the game. Then we're doing that. We're doing this for the love of the game. What they're doing, they love playing the game, but they also love making money. And the more money you can make, the happier you are with your situation. So this, money may not be the deciding factor, but it certainly plays a major role.
Yeah, it really depends on how they view it, like you said. Um, if Cubo is going to be the one to get kicked, right? It doesn't really open up the opportunity for Tricks to go somewhere else. He really would have to leave the team, I think. And yeah, that's the only way I see it happening, honestly. But it's all in all, it's still an unlikely scenario, of course. So yeah, I think we've sort of gone through the entirety of this topic. Should we
Yeah,
wrap it up here?
that's got nothing else to say about it unless you have anything else.
I don't think so. Yeah, in that case, that was it from this TNS short. Like, follow, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. You know what to do. And thank you for watching or listening. And as always, good night. Good smite.